Welcome to week 2. You made it through week 1. Most of y'all made it through week 1 of online learning. Congratulations to all of those of you who have completed all of your work. I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much for everybody who shouted me out for my birthday and sent me a text message or a phone call or a message. I might not get all of you. Like, I might not mention all of your names. If I don't feel bad because it was so many of you. But shout out to Deanna. She was the first person to tell me happy birthday. Shout out to Silas and Serenity and Ashana and Askaya. Who else? Shout out to Raymond, Micaiah. You sent me a beautiful message. Charmaine. Let me get my phone. Charmaine, thank you for your message. Jonathan, I saw your message. Thank you. Let me get my phone to see if I'm missing people. Hold on. Okay, let me see here. Who else shouted me out for my birthday? Give me a second. Avani, thank you for your birthday wishes. Who else? Who else? Who else? Give me a second, guys. Nazaria, thank you for shouting me out. Thank you for texting me. I appreciate it. Let's see. I think that's most of y'all. Oh, Ayana, thank you. Shout out to Alana Choice. Her mom, thank you. You and your mom called me. You guys made me feel really special. Thank you. And I think that's it. If some of you reached out to me online, I haven't been able to get through all of the messages, but thank you so much for the birthday wishes. Now, on a more serious note, most of you guys have logged on. Your next step is to make sure that you are completing all your work. So some people have logged on, but maybe you only completed Monday and Tuesday. Maybe you're still missing Fridays. You need to go back and you need to make sure you are submitting all of your missing work, okay? So anything from last week that you didn't do, make sure you do it. Now, on the other hand, if any of you, since the only way we stay in contact is through phones, in the internet, in the computers. So if any of y'all have contact with these people, I need you to reach out to them and tell them to start their work and go accept the invite and get on Google Classrooms, okay? I'm putting y'all on the spot. Dakari, somebody call him. Like, y'all call him, okay? Anthony Butler, Alana Choice, Brandon Choice. They need to get on here. Kamarion Davis, Kendrick, Damariana, Jocelyn. Who else? Javar, Kevion, Jarrell. Like, all of these people need to get online, okay? If you know some of your friends who are not online, I'm not going to go through the entire list, but get them online, okay? SIU, step your game up. Call everybody in SIU to make sure that they log on and do their work. Shout out to Jonathan and Charmaine. They were the first 2 people to complete all of their assignments. I'm proud of you. Anyway, okay, now let's get to the work. Now, this week is going to be a little bit different. This week the work is going to be combined. So the packet that you're looking at for today is actually for Monday and Tuesday. So it's for both Monday and Tuesday, and it is due Wednesday, okay? So you have both of those days to complete everything. We're starting our new novel, so the first 2 days work is you're reading chapters 1 and 2. But before we read, there are a couple of questions. So I want you to complete the PDN. Just so that I get to know more about you as it relates to this book. I'm scrolling down to where it says before we read. Now, so the narrator in this book uses slang throughout the story to communicate different things. And remember that slang is different from the dictionary definition of words. So on this activity, you have to write down both the dictionary definition of a word and then guess what the slang definition or definitions, because there may be more than one, of each word is in the story. So my first example is the word brother. So the real definition of the word brother is a man or a boy who shares one or more parents with another person. That's a brother. Like, I have this many brothers. That's a brother, okay? or so-and-so is my favorite brother or my oldest brother. However, the slang definition, that's the definition that you might use like if you're talking to your friends or your family. That doesn't necessarily mean the real meaning, okay? So a slang definition is like a guy who's really close to you or someone you trust, a really good friend. So for example, like, you know what? You my brother. Like, I'll do anything for you. That's one definition. There's another slang definition of brother that is used in the very first couple of the first couple of paragraphs of chapter 1. So you can look that up and figure that one out too. Another example of slang, if some of you guys don't understand it, is like the word when y'all taught me that's cap. Oh, that's cap. That means like that's not true. You lying. That's also slang because the real definition of cap is a hat. Okay. But the slang definition is like that's a lie. Okay. So complete the other three, bad, hang, and step. You can Google the dictionary definition. That's completely fine. And then you determine the slang definition based on how you may use it. That's different from the real meaning. Okay. Scrolling down to where it says Monday, chapter 1. Purpose of chapter 1 is to get you familiar with the characters and give you some background knowledge about them and just set the story up so that you know what has already happened, because that's really important. So there are three main characters in this. There's Lafayette, who's the narrator. There's Tyree, and then there's New Charlie. His real name is Charlie, but he's known as New Charlie. And his other nickname is Cha. And Lafayette's other nickname is La or Laf, L-A-F. Okay? So in the boxes where it says notes, what you're doing is you're writing down anything that you learn about any of these characters during chapter 1. It could be character traits. It can be their appearance. It can be what relationship they have with the other characters in the story. It can also be what might have already happened to them, etc. Any notes that you have, you type them there because they're going to be helpful as you go on. Okay? So that's what that work is. The rest of it is just questions to make sure that you're comprehending what you're reading. So for the rest of the video, guys, I'm going to be reading the book. This is what it looks like. Well, the latest version that I have, this is what it looks like. I'm going to be reading chapter 1. You all can either listen to me read or you can click on the link wherever it is. Of chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'm just reading chapter 1. You're going to be reading chapter 2 completely on your own, but you have the option of either listening to me read or you can read chapter 1 on your own. There's also, this book is also available on Audible. So, but check in with your parents before you buy anything. Don't be telling your parents that I told y'all to use their cards to buy stuff. Okay, because it costs to download the book on Audible. That's where you can listen to it. All right, chapter 1. Oh, I wish we were in person so we could all rock the baby. So we could all rock the baby and treat it like a baby because it's a new book. Hold on, let me tell Miss Patel that I'm busy. She always calling, trying to. She got nothing to do. Okay, chapter 1. I miss y'all so much. This would be so much more fun if I was with y'all. Okay. Brothers is the baddest. Then comes Dominicans. Dominicans don't mess around. I'm cool with Dominicans though. They don't mess with me, I don't mess with them. I lay back on my bed and listen to my brother New Charlie talking. We had shared this room since the day I was born. And I swear, since the day I was born, he'd been going on and on about who was the baddest. Used to be Puerto Ricans were the second baddest. But somewhere along the road, their status dropped. Brothers were always at the top or the next ones down. So he's using brothers in a different way. So I want you to try to figure out what he's talking about when he refers to brothers. New Charlie wasn't talking to me. Since he gotten home from Broadway Home for Boys a few months ago, he never talked to me. He was combing his hair and talking to Aaron. They'd known each other forever to say W's up and stuff. But they didn't start hanging till New Charlie came home from Rahway. Seems once New Charlie saw the inside of Rahway, most of the guys around here who cut school, hung out real late, and got into all kinds of stuff thought he was some kind of wonderful. Aaron acted like he wanted to kiss the heels of New Charlie's shoes, hanging on to New Charlie's words like they were something special. And New Charlie was just as stupid over Aaron, hanging out with him like Aaron was his brother, like Aaron was me. New Charlie and Aaron were the same height and walked the same way, and now they had the same meanness. Aaron's meanness had always been around him, even when we were small. We'd walk past him and he'd say something negative, like when Mama used to make us go to church on Sundays. I hope y'all been going to church. We'd be all dressed up, walking to the bus stop, and Aaron would say something like, Mama's church boy is going to meet their maker. Or the time our big brother Tyrese stopped him from snatching this little kid's Halloween bag. Aaron didn't take the bag, but he kept glaring over his shoulder as me and Tyree and the kid walked away saying, That's all right, church boy. That's all right. Like he had something waiting for us later on. New Charlie's meanness was as new as his name. He'd come back from Rahway with it. And the way he and Aaron hung so tight, you'd think he didn't remember those days when we crossed to the other side of the street when we saw Aaron and his boys hanging out. I watched New Charlie part his hair on one side and comb it one way, then shake his head, part it on the other, and pull the comb through it again. His hair is curly, like our mama's was. Jet black curls that girls go crazy for. He's 3 years older than me, but only a little bit taller. And at the rate he was going school-wise, come this time next year, I'd be almost caught up with him. I just started 7th grade, and New Charlie was repeating 9th, but he didn't seem to care one way or the other. The old Charlie would have cared about me catching up to him. He would have sat down at the dining room table and crammed because he would think he would have been embarrassed about me being in almost the same grade as him. See, the old Charlie had feelings. If Charlie saw a stray cat or dog, he'd start crying. Not out and out bawling, but he'd just see it and start tearing up. Sometimes when we were out walking, he'd turn away real fast, and I know it was because he saw the shadow of some stray animal and was wishing it wasn't out in the cold. So what do you learn about New Charlie there? Once, he told me that some nights he lay in bed just praying for all the stray animals out there. There's a lot of them, you know, Charlie said, and probably not a whole lot of people praying for him. He told me about St. Francis of Assisi, how he was the guy who looked out for all the animals. He said him and St. Francis were the only two asking God to help those animals walking in the cold streets not to freeze to death. I promised Charlie I'd pray too. And sometimes, late at night, Charlie would just start talking, telling me stories about how things were before I was born. Memories of him and our older brother Tyree and my mama and daddy together. Wasn't ever anything mean in it. Like that he wished I hadn't been born or something. Just stories, quiet stories that would make me smile and help me fall asleep. Now, I call him New Charlie because Rahway hadn't sent the guy I was just talking about home. This guy standing at the mirror, moving his hair around his head, was something different. Not the guy who used to laugh and tell jokes and put his arm around my shoulder. This guy never did any of those things. Ever. Right after he came from Rahway, I got up in the middle of the night to look at him. Rahway, guys, if you haven't figured it out by now, is like a juvenile detention center. So very similar to jail, but since New Charlie is underage, that's what it is. So he's coming back from juvie, and Lafayette is describing how he's different. Okay. He'd been away for more than 2 years, and the guy sleeping across from me was a stranger. Some days, he'd just sit on that bed with his hands hanging down between his knees, just staring out the window and looking evil. But when he was asleep, his face spread out. All the frowns and scowls just kind of faded, and he looked like Charlie again, ready to care about something, to be happy or to cry about stray animals. New Charlie checked himself out for a moment without saying anything. He's light brown with thick black eyebrows and mama's nose. He winked at himself, then caught me watching him in the mirror and gave me the finger. I looked away from him without giving him the finger back. What changed you, Cha? I wanted to ask him. What made you cold? Y'all don't go to church no more? Aaron nosed. I swallowed and caught New Charlie's eye. He looked back at me for a second, then frowned. Church for little boys, he said. Little mama's boys. I look like a little mama's boy to you? Aaron shrugged. The last time any of us was in church was for Mama's funeral. I didn't want to see the inside of one again, at least not for a long time. At least till the thought of even passing by one isn't enough to make me choke up and start bawling about Mama. Stupid little mama's boy like Lala, New Charlie said. My name ain't Lala, I said. In the summer, I go down south to my great aunt Cecile's house. If the watermelons are ripe, she'll buy one. When we get home, she always takes it out back and breaks it open against a rock, then scoops out the heart of it, the sweetest, reddest part, and hands it to me. I stared out the window. Somebody had done that to Charlie, scooped out his heart, and sent the empty, bitter rind of him on home. This chair getting on my nerves, y'all. Hold on, give me a second. Switch this chair. All right, this one not going crazy. Where I'm at, where I leave off. Okay. Aaron was sitting on the bed directly across from mine. New Charlie's bed, and he was rolling one of his pants legs up real slowly. Sometimes when he looked at me, I felt the coldness, like somebody was dripping ice water down my back. Ooh. Anyway, Puerto Ricans, New Charlie said, if they're in a gang, then you got a problem. But if they're on their own, then it's cool. Most of the ones in Rahway had gangs behind them. He's talking about Puerto Ricans now. I don't know no Puerto Ricans that ain't in a gang, Cha, Aaron said. What you talking about? I said. We're half Puerto Rican and we ain't in no gang. And you're all Puerto Rican and you ain't either. How you know what I'm in with your little self? Aaron said. You don't know nothing about me, little boy. Aaron looked me up and down like he was looking at something that didn't even have a right to be in the world. He was wearing a Yankees baseball cap with the front of it pulled down over his eyes so that he had to lift his whole face to look at me. I thought that was a stupid way to wear a hat, but I didn't say anything about it. I don't know what my size got to do with anything, but I know you ain't in no mind your business, la. New Charlie glared at me through the mirror. Nobody in this room talking to you. You hear anybody call your name? When somebody calls your name, then somebody's talking to you. And nobody in this room is ever going to be calling your name. So just keep your stupid little mouth closed, Aaron said, and maybe you'll live. Lafayette, I said. My name ain't no Lala, it's Lafayette. I turned away from both of them and stared out the window. If you ever had a brother who didn't like you, then I don't have to explain it. Feels like being a stranger in your own house. Like everything that used to mean something doesn't anymore. Even your own name. New Charlie hated my guts since Mama died, and he wasn't shy about letting anybody listen and know it. Most times when he and Aaron got to talking, I just stayed quiet. If I was real quiet, it was like I was invisible. And if I was invisible, New Charlie couldn't hate me. What about white boys? Aaron asked. White boys? What you think about white boys? Don't know, Cha. That's why I'm here asking you. Thing about Dominican and brothers, I figure. Of course I know about white boys, New Charlie said. They not even worth mentioning. It's like if you have a totem pole of badness, right? You got the brothers at the top, then the Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans in gangs, then the Puerto Ricans not in gangs, and maybe some of the Chinese guys that's in gangs. They know karate and stuff too, Aaron said, like Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan can mess some brothers up, yo. Yeah, like if they know karate, then they probably go before Puerto Ricans in gangs. Except if the gangbangers got guns. Aaron looked over at me. Blow somebody's head off. I chewed on my bottom lip and didn't say anything. Once, before he went to Rahway, Charlie took me to see a Jackie Chan movie. When we came out of the movies, I started kicking and chopping and stuff, telling Charlie I wish I was Chinese so then I could know karate. Charlie put his hand on my shoulder and turned me toward him. Not all Chinese people know karate, he said. That's a stereotype. I didn't know what he was talking about, but his hand was hard on my shoulder, so I stopped chopping. Like when people say all black people are lazy or something, Charlie said. I shrugged. A few months later, I saw another movie. Only it wasn't a Jackie Chan. And it wasn't about karate. It was about this couple. And they had this landlord who lived upstairs who was supposed to be Chinese or something. Only he wasn't really. He was some guy making believe. When people in the audience started laughing at the way the guy was talking, I felt weird, like it wasn't right. But if they know karate, New Charlie was saying, then they can kick a gun out of a gangbanger's hand, right? Yeah, Aaron said. You right. If they're fast enough. Don't a bullet travel at the speed of sound or something? Depend on the gun, probably, New Charlie said. I wanted to remind New Charlie about that day at the Jackie Chan flick, about his hand on my shoulder, and what he'd said. And I wanted to tell New Charlie that he had the totem pole idea all screwed up. If brothers were at the top, that meant they were the least bad. Anybody who knew even the tiniest bit about totem poles knew that the most important was at the bottom. But I bit my bottom lip and didn't say anything. Then, after everybody else, New Charlie was saying, then you got the white boys. What about that guy David? Aaron asked. The one from Huawei. I looked at New Charlie in time to see him glance at me in the mirror, then cut his eyes back at Aaron. He wasn't allowed to talk about Huawei in front of me. Tyree didn't allow it. But Tyree wasn't at work. But Tyree was at work. And New Charlie took every chance he could to do the opposite of what Tyree said. He turned toward Aaron and leaned back against our dresser. Then he dropped his voice real low. I saw him make a knife out of a slipper spoon, he said. His mom had sent him one because he kept saying his shoes were getting too small. And since he couldn't afford to buy him a new pair of shoes, she sent him some Vaseline and one of those things putting your shoes on easier. I know they got another name, but he called it a slipper spoon. New Charlie eyed me, daring me to give the right name for it. I looked up at the ceiling and didn't say anything. I love stories about Huawei. Every night, I'd hear something scraping, real soft against the floor, like you had to listen real hard to hear. Sounded like a shy cat against a screen door, just a little whisper of a scrape. But I knew what it was, so it sounded real loud to me, like a clock ticking away somebody's life. How he gonna sharpen it on the floor, yo? New Charlie rolled his eyes. Floors in Huawei ain't no regular floors. Everything there is made out of cement. Walls, ceilings, floors, like you living inside a big gray rock. Winter, you feel like you'll freeze to death inside that rock. Summer, you think you're gonna fry. He stared into the mirror, only he wasn't looking at himself anymore. He was looking somewhere else, someplace far away. Everywhere, cement, he said, his voice dropping lower. And all of us always marching in line, to the bathroom, to grub hall, to yard time. I'm trying to read to the kids. Oh my God. My sister crawling on the floor, y'all, so she can't get in the camera. This is what I deal with at home. Okay, where was I? And all of us always marching in a line to the bathroom. Get your leg off the floor. To the bathroom, to grub hall, to yard time. No talking, just marching. Say one word, and the CO's calling your last name and taking something away from you. No TV, no yard time, no rec hall. He was still looking at that far off place, but he was whispering now. No you, no more. I pressed my back into the wall. The white walls Mama had painted to make our bedroom bright, and tried to imagine my brother inside that stone place. The place he'd gone back to after Mama's funeral. No Mama, no name. Who that guy killed, child? Aaron said. New Charlie blinked and looked from me to Aaron like he wasn't sure who we were or why we were there. Who? That guy David, yo, the one with the slipper spoon, Aaron said. What's wrong with you, man? So he's like, New Charlie was like having a flashback. You're like, beam me up or something. It's not deep, eh? I'm just trying to remember all of it. A few days later, David showed me the slipper spoon, only it wasn't a slipper spoon no more. He moved it real light across his finger, and one drop of blood came out. Reddest blood I'd ever seen in my life. I mean, he like barely touched his finger, and that drop of blood was there. His finger was real pale, and that blood just stood out on it, all thick and red. I looked at that blood and knew the next person come in contact with that slipper spoon was never going to hear the words happy birthday again. Who he killed? Aaron asked again. Yeah, New Charlie said. I'd have to put David higher on the totem pole than the other white boys. Aaron grinned. You ain't gonna say 'cause of Lala? New Charlie nodded. I know he didn't kill anybody, I said. I know the CO found that shoehorn under David's pillow one day while y'all were out in the yard, and David got sent off to another place, worse than Rahway. New Charlie gave me a dirty look. That's what you think, stupid. That's what Tyree says to tell you, but that ain't what happened. And since you think you know so much, I'm really not gonna say. I almost said too. Then you had to go and open your fat mouth. That's what you get, you little. I waited for him to say it, but he didn't, and I felt my stomach relax. He turned back to the mirror. New Charlie was wearing a plaid long sleeve shirt and baggy jeans. He unbuttoned the top button and then buttoned it again and checked himself out one more time. You ready? New Charlie asked. Aaron nodded. Then let's step. He looked at me. When Tyree gets home, you tell him we just left too. You hear me? I kept staring out the window. Your brother's talking to you, man, Aaron said. Yeah, I hear you. Later, Milagros killer. Oh, shoot, Aaron laughed. That's cold, man. It's true, Charlie said. I swallowed and looked down at my hand so New Charlie wouldn't see me, my eyes tearing up. I could hear the door slamming in the living room, and him and Aaron running down the stairs, taking them two at a time the way they always did. A few minutes later, I heard New Charlie calling out to somebody. It was gray out. I stared at the sky and tried not to let his words sink in. I stared until the windows blurred. I didn't kill her, I whispered. Then I lay back on my bed and prayed it would pour down rain. All right. Complete the work for chapter 1 for Monday. You can save chapter 2 for Tuesday, but that you're going to have to read on your own, okay? Love y'all. Make sure you do your work. Bye.